Well, hello, everyone. We are working through just a slight bit of technical difficulties with our special guest, Brad Bickerton. This is Coach Show. I'm Joseph Logan and my co-host, Nate Miller.
Hey guys. Hey Rolla. Hey Ollie.
Yeah, we've got the
Good to see
got
you
the A
guys.
team here today.
Totally.
Yeah, so Nate, I was thinking earlier today, you might have seen it, and perhaps others have seen it as well. Curtis Matsko talking about, like putting himself out there, filming in public, feeling like a little
Yep.
bit of a goofball.
Yeah, I saw that.
And there's Brad.
Hey
Hey, Brad.
Brad.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Welcome.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
Ah.
You are in the coach show.
Whoa.
Rock and roll.
So yeah, I was thinking about what we've been doing here, and how the thing Curtis was talking about
Yeah.
feeling the discomfort and just kind of putting himself
Yeah.
out there. Anyway, like I think we've done 5 or 6 sessions of this right now, and
Yeah.
that is totally how it came to pass. It's just
Yeah,
like
it is.
this feels really, really like vulnerable and being a goofball. And we always kind of struggle with the tech a little bit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh man, do I look like an idiot here? And then we get here and we have these wonderful conversations and we get to talk with people like Brad. And we bring, people like Allie and Rolla into the conversation. It just feels great. I'm
Yeah.
loving the way this is emerging.
Oh yeah. Same. The goofball part is, and I think it's funny because for anybody who doesn't know who Curtis Matsko is, he's the CEO of Portland Leather Goods, which is a company that does about 400 million a year in revenue, direct to consumer, selling purses and wallets and journals and this kind of thing. And so he has a few followers, and when he's doing things in public and then putting it out there, you know, um, I feel a little bit safer with our small group of folks so far, to be goofy and be myself. And Brett, thanks for being here today.
Yeah. But you guys are on brand for what I know of Joseph, which is authenticity is his brand. And that's kind of a fun, nice little word set, but you're not authentic when you're pretending to be something you're not. So let's pretend that we're
Yeah.
cool, awesome people with 100 million followers is like not pretending to be who we are. And of course,
Totally.
we all know that from the coaching world. It's not the biggest enemy, but one of the big enemies, the mind gremlin, is the comparison shopping to what they could be, should be, or somebody else is. Like, well, let's
Yeah.
ground into what you are, and then like see where we go from there. So,
Yeah,
I think
that's
that's
right.
really well put. I mean, if I were to compare myself to Martha Beck or Tony Robbins or someone like that, I think I would be a pale shade, a pale imitation of them.
you'd be
Not as
terrible at being Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins,
I would
not
be.
Tony Romo. Yeah, but you don't want to be him. You want to be Joseph.
Yeah, it
You're
turns out I'm pretty good at that.
you're
So
really good at that.
I'm gonna go ahead and stick with that. I've been doing
Some
it a
people
long
would
time,
say
so I've had a lot of
you're
practice.
world class.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're getting better and better at it too.
thanks, man. I have a really good coach. I think that's a big part of it.
Oh man.
So, we have a distinguished guest today. I think they're all distinguished in their way, but this guy is legit distinguished. Brad Bickerton of Delta Awesome has been a friend for several years for me. We used to get breakfast together at the Buff quite a lot, and then something life happened. Brad actually created Life, which is kind of an impressive thing, and so spends a lot more of his time at home with his wife, raising a child, doing all those things. And one of the things I'm going to plant as a seed here is that Brad also has had I think, an evolving relationship with coaching altogether. And so that was one of the things that really kind of drew me to having him be in the conversation today. And so rather than talking about him, I was thinking maybe we just ask him the hardest question anyone ever asked. Hey, Brad, tell us about yourself.
There I was,
Yeah.
10,000 feet in the air, no parachute. That's all you need to know. Oh, I
All
like I
Amazing
right.
like
that
the
happens.
widescreen I'm getting right now, guys. I like it. Like you can almost see my full Canadian eagle coming in here. Um, I'll tell
Full
you about
service
myself,
shop
but
here.
I'm going to make you guys do something first because what's the point of being a coach if you can't take the mic and then turn around on somebody else and act like their question didn't matter until, of
Ooh,
course, you answered in
ooh.
the end. And so we're
Power
going to do a
move.
little mind game here. And Ollie and Rolla, please play along. The fun thing is for you, you get to play along without being seen. The sad thing for you is you get to play along without being seen. Okay, Joseph, Nate, put both hands out like this, right in front of you. Okay, and now put them together in a circle. Just go in a circle like this. Okay, good. You guys got it? This is not too complicated. Ollie, you are not doing it. Are you doing it? Okay. Rolla, we're trusting you are. Okay, stop. Backwards. Getting it? You feeling it? Okay, stop. Opposite hands going opposite directions. No, you guys are good. No,
Uh,
come on, guys.
yep.
You guys are coaches. You guys work with mind gremlins. Yeah, Ali. Oh, you're getting close. Oh no, you're still going the same way again. Oh no, some of you guys are going up and down. Some of you guys are just
Yeah.
okay. That's my
Good
icebreaker.
one.
Now, somewhere in there is a great metaphor about coaching. I've yet to find it. Part of the
Right
reason I'm so
on.
happy to yeah, it's funny when you could think about it, right? You could like torture the metaphor of what that is, which is our brains don't do things right all the time, and you can do something right over here and right over there, but can you switch the context or can you do it differently? Can you think orthogonally? Sure, if I torture the metaphor long enough, I can get it to say anything, which is something we love about metaphors and frameworks. But the reason I'm super excited to be here today is that as I was coming into coaching, Joseph was the only person who encouraged me and authentically knew what he was encouraging me to do. And so that's just something. And so Delta Awesome started in the end of 2017. And so I've been doing this now for 7.5 years. So, I guess I'm starting to earn my stripes, except for every time I drop a number like that, which is really just to defeat the mind gremlins of the people who've been doing it less than two. Joseph then, of course, always, puts his skins on the wall of how many years he's done it. And it's always, little defeating. But before I share kind of one framework that I love, something that I think is truly remarkable about high end coaches, and I want to preface with that is coevolution happens a lot. We don't all read the same books, so we read a lot of them. We didn't all read the book on coaching. We showed up, we did our best, and we co-evolved into finding systems and tools that work. And while we give them different names and have different principles, we share liberally. But a lot of the times we find ourselves going after the same problem set because over time we learn which problem set is either the hardest to define and so that's the highest value of getting rid of or just has the highest value of pouring gas on the fire of. And I learned all this by going to the buff with Joseph, and we would chat about clients, and then he would bring something up and I say, oh, this is how I do it, and we'd kind of refine it. We'd get to the point where it's like, well, it's apples and oranges. There's both fruit and they both hold in your hands, and they're way more similar than they are distinguishable. So that's just one of the reasons I'm happy to be here. Is Joseph's been my co-evolution um, partner, mentor, guide for a long time. Um, Second reason I'm excited to be here is now I get to say, while Joseph has done this longer and better than me for a long time, I'm going to violate something he totally told me not to violate, which is I have a framework that if I ever write a book, it would probably just be this framework. And it's something I use with every CEO I coach for whatever distinguished record there is. I don't coach a team unless I coach the CEO. Something about my nature, my way. I really do speak CEO very well, old, young, first time, not first time. I just speak that language pretty well. And this is a CEO's framework. It's for them. It's about their journey. It's about the work you do when you're in the chair, singular language on purpose, because there's something just completely special and different about the CEO's work. So I initially titled this framework. I know it's a long intro, but it's fun. I initially titled this framework The CEO's Personal Journey, but nobody gave a shit. Everyone wanted to know the framework, and so it started becoming called Red Line, Blue Line, Black Line. And everybody but Joseph loves that framework because they spend the time, except for Joseph, to memorize what each of those mean, red, blue, and black. Now, black, of course, is good, because being in the black is good. Being in the no, Joseph's right. This framework is non-ordinal, right? There's no natural ordination to this category. It's not morning, noon, and night. Okay, that's an we know the order of those events. This is something where someone like Joseph actually has to spend some time and memorize what the different categories are. And while I'm throwing some shade at him, it's actually really the reflection of I worked with ChatGPT for way too many hours 3 weeks ago to solve this problem. I presented the solution sets to 4 different people. They poo-pooed it and said, stick with red line, blue line, black line, even if Joseph doesn't like it. So unfortunately, Joseph, I have empathy studied away from your grand advice. Okay.
Now,
So
I just want to interject here. Thank you for that little bit of context setting. I think anytime one finds oneself in the majority, one should pause and reflect. The only thing that I really ever had an issue with, because the concept is brilliant. I mean,
we'll get there.
Like it's the thing, I work with this in my own way without the colors, and it's actually the way I work with it. Funny enough, it's not ordinal at all.
Nor should it
But
be.
the thing I think about is, what if I were driving down the road and I didn't know what red, yellow, and green mean in the context of driving? And I hate the thought that I would be driving along the way I normally do and go, yellow again? So that is my only quibble, and only ever has been.
I concur and agree. However, you very specifically asked me to work on it, and I tried. And my conclusion was go pound sand. Said with love. Says it's heart and effort put in. Yeah, there you go. All right, so let's give you the breakdown of this. I can tell you the story is how it originated, but I think it's less interesting to just get into it. So the red line work is defined by this is singular to the CEO. You own this work. And owning the work doesn't necessarily mean the same as putting the most hours in or doing the work, but you own it. The blue line work is defined as all the work the CEO is doing that should be done by your other critical thinkers, typically the C-suite. And the black line work is anything defined as simply inbox, outbox style of work. And the reason I want this to be non-ordinal is I have friends who are lawyers who bill $1,400 an hour doing white-collar criminal defense work, and they consider themselves black line employees to the firm. There's nothing wrong with being a black line employee. There's nothing wrong with black line work unless you're the CEO, because it's defined, it's scoped, it's understood. It's not your best highest use, and there's nothing unique about you doing that work. Well, the whole concept of the red line, blue line, black line is put you into your best highest use where you are uniquely valuable. So black line, inbox, outbox, critical thinking, blue line, middle zone, probably where you came from if you're a CEO, right? And that's the whole concept of the identity that got you here is not the identity to wear here. Let's talk about what the red line is, because we kind of now know what the other buckets are, and we can probably read a book or have been there for it. I put 5 things in the red line, which is unfortunate. I wanted it to be 3. The first 3 have been written about, talked about. They're going to make sense to you right away, or you're going to have heard them before. They're not that special. And it's vision, money, culture, or the smart way to say it, creating and clearly communicating the company vision. Look, if you don't create and you can't clearly communicate the company vision and you're the CEO, you've dropped most of the balls. Everything else is either the tailwind from the last guy, macro economy helping you out, or just pure hubris or luck driving you forward. If I can't go to somebody in the organization and say, what's the company vision? And they can't bungle through trying to do it, it's your fault, CEO. That's the clearly communicating. But also you got to create it. Right? Doesn't come from nowhere. And this is the big thing that everyone makes a mistake. They just kind of think visions come from nowhere and take no time or effort. It's like the amount of time and effort to create company vision. Why the hell do we exist? And why should anyone care? If you can't answer those 2 questions and your team can't answer those 2 questions, you bungled one part of being a CEO. Second part of being CEO, the numbers. A reasonable capital strategy. For startups, it's called don't run out of money. For other companies, it's fit within the pattern of what you're trying to achieve with your economic engine. Look, your CFO is going to help you a lot with that. So is your CRO and your CMO and the guy from the moon and everything else. But in the end, a realistic capital strategy, it's on you, bud. Third, a trustworthy and stable team and culture. Trustworthy. Look, I've had people I trusted to be 15 to 30 minutes late to every single meeting we ever went to. I trusted them. Yeah, Nate's looking up. He's like, oh, I remember that person. I trusted them, but they weren't worthy of trust. Right? Wasn't a good trust, wasn't a whole trust, wasn't a meaningful trust, and wasn't a trust that could be shared amongst other people that gels and creates something better. And stable. You're not having people just being erratic, either in their emotions or the work that they're doing or how often people are staying and going. If you don't have a trustworthy and stable team and culture, that's you, CEO. Fourth, so that stuff's been written about forever. The fourth thing that I put in there is something I call pathfinding. It's really interesting, but what's next for the company? Whether it's the company I'm working for right now, it's in healthcare, they do one thing really well, 700 employees, 100 million in revenue, they're pathfinding like crazy. Or the startup that I just met yesterday, pre-revenue, three people dreaming a team, they're pathfinding like crazy. How do I define pathfinding? Pathfinding is going down the various paths that you could take this organization and testing them out and finding out which one's the right one for you. Because you only as the CEO actually understand the whole picture. It's different than just the vision. The metaphor is, remember the Oregon Trail game? You get to Denver, you go south, there's bandits. You go straight through, there's rocks and cliffs, or you can go the long way around. You need someone to go down those paths, find those answers out, and then say, our team is equipped to do this path, this path, this path. You then bring that to your C suite and you say, how do we get there, do that, build that? All right. So those are the four things. The fifth thing, well, you're going to define it for yourself because every CEO and every context is different. And every time I've ever pitched this to a CEO, they go, well, yeah, but I have to be a public figure, or I have to make sure the rocket, launches, or I have to do this or do that. So there's always a fifth thing that fits within the CEO realm. But after I present this to people, usually during a strategy day, everybody, an entire C-suite can get on board that if that's all the CEO did, 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, for years, if that's all they did, it would be their best and highest use for the entire organization. Now that we've established the stakes and what we're doing, we then do an audit of what the CEO is actually doing, and we put everything into red line, blue line, black line categories. And this is where it becomes the CEO's personal journey. Your journey is to figure out what do you do to start moving yourself into only red line work. And look, this smart but stupid answer is delegate everything in black line. It's nice platitude. It's not easy to do. It's a journey. You have to look at it and you have to physically decide it is better for me to spend an hour on my bike thinking about clearly communicating the company vision than an hour getting in somebody else's way to try and achieve something that I'm used to be good at. It's a very hard journey. And it's why I always do red line, blue line, black line in strategy days in front of the entire team. They have to be exposed to it, a little bit vulnerable. What's a really crazy fun thing is the rest of the team usually picks off the things for the CEO. They don't have to think, oh, God, I got to delegate this to Nate. I have to ask him to do something. He's busy. He's tired. So, you just
He's
sit there as a CEO and you're like,
unreliable.
Nate's unreliable. But it turns out somewhere over the course of a couple hours, Nate kind of goes, Brad, I really do want you to help work on this part of the stabilizing the team. And I do see how that's going to affect everything. I'm just going to go ahead and take this off your plate because I think it's more valuable for you to spend time in Redline, thereby giving me the permission to do this really hard work. And over time, if you find a good harmony, your staff will actually just literally push you into Redline work because they see how it feeds the system. So I could talk about this literally all day, but that's the framework, CEO personal journey / whatever Joseph defines and calls it later.
Well, I don't know about Nate, although I am going to ask in a moment. But that that just feels resonant for me. And I promised
Pass?
Nate we're having a conversation earlier, and I think one of the questions I'd like to begin with goes to that point of vulnerability in that moment. And
Mm.
I promised Nate earlier that I would ask you this question, and I will explain why later. But the question is, Brad, how is your heart today?
Mm. Mm. It's a great question. My heart is full today. And some recent notes as to the why, or maybe the explanation of why it's full, is I have Tuesday morning breakfasts with good friends. And I got to do a meaningful project with a client, got to spend some time with my son, exercise, and I'm here now. A pretty good day.
That's amazing.
Not every day, guys. Let's put that out there.
Fair enough.
The reason Nate and I were talking about that earlier is that question, first off, it comes from love and interest and curiosity. I care how people are doing, and I really want to know. The second reason is that, as Nate, observed, it's a real pattern interrupt. If you say, "How are you today?" someone is going to recite their to-do list to you.
Mm.
They're going to tell you about all the things that they were doing. If you ask, "How's your heart today?" they actually have to pause and reflect on what their internal emotional experience is. And it just occurred to me as you were talking about the vulnerability, that is probably a great way to open that door to actually being vulnerable, to model it, in the moment.
And so, from a coaching perspective, you and I, Joseph, talked many times about consent. And my funny phrase that's actually extremely useful, it just sounds funny at the beginning, is in order to engage in this coaching relationship, you are giving me consent to muck with your soul. Oh,
Just wait till we bring Ali onto the stage. Like you've got the easy version of this right now.
yeah, that I welcome it, and I welcome stretch and capacity building, but that like there are real bits to this, and I guess where I'm going is once you already have established that part of the relationship with someone, you then actually have consent to put them in an open position. I don't want to say vulnerable like it's like a stress position. But by the time I've coached somebody for a couple weeks and then I get them in front of their whole team to do red line, blue line, black line, it feels more like a mechanical endeavor. What are you doing with your time, Nate? And your team's watching and they get it, and you might hide this or whatever, and I'll call that out. But I don't, um, but the vulnerability comes with them trying to give up the stuff that they're holding sacred. And that's
Yeah,
why I do this in public, because the other people then take that fear away. Not
right.
always, right? Right. But yeah.
That's a really
Uh,
powerful. I really love that, because modeling vulnerability is how we signal to others that it's okay for
yep.
them, right? And and a lot of times for me, I mean, I'm really open and vulnerable about a lot of my personal fit and personal journey and personal struggles in life and the ways that I got it wrong before I got it right. When I talk with clients and when we work together, and I love that the way that your approach, that you've just described, sort of allows that within a team, or facilitates is a better word, right?
Yeah.
Facilitates that within a team is sort of like giving, like prompting the CEO, pushing them out on the ledge a little bit to be like, okay, here's your chance, like you can build a lot of trust and you can create culture, um, just by doing this exercise with me in front of your guys, and gals. Um,
Yeah.
and and that's just in that moment, that's really powerful. I love that.
And
Right.
that's why I did, by the way, the arms in front and the circles at first. You guys
Yeah,
all had to be a little uncomfortable, perform a little on stage, and do something wrong. Like I primed you guys with that minute one.
yeah,
So it's not that hard for you then to say, oh, yeah, I do things wrong. Why? Because remember a minute ago I did something wrong? Well, was it wrong? Did you do something wrong? No. Did you do something silly? Yeah. Is everyone still here and okay? Yeah. Okay, let's just check on another thing. What is the fundamental thing we all have to be doing right now as people? It's not optional. Oh, breathe.
Yeah.
Breathing's not optional. Okay, check. What else do we got to do as people? No, that's the list. Oh, so then everything else we're doing is some degree of voluntary. Maybe not for forever, but like in the right now, having this conversation, not swearing at you, not leaving, not, whatever. It's like, okay, we can be a little bit more vulnerable because we already were. We did something silly together. And then the king or queen, the CEO, comes up and says, I am presenting to you the problem that is me. I can do
Yeah.
more for you, but I don't know how because I'm just one person. And I
Yeah.
can't see my blind spots. I can't do it, guys, because no one can see their blind spots. And when you want to go into what I was originally going to pitch here is like why I believe coaching at a 5 or 10x value is like bullshit. We should be shooting for 50x. But one thing that I know is like fitting in the matrix of what coaching is valuable for is perspective. If all people did was pay me for perspective, I'd be worth my fee. Now, it's not all I want to do. It's not enough for me. But that perspective, the CEO comes in and says, hey, everybody, like with the team, I just want to give you my vulnerability if I don't have perspective on self, because none of us do. I'm going to go first. We're going to start by building out my red line, blue line, black line. But here's the other piece, Nate, that I maybe didn't describe clearly is will I do a 1 or 2 day facilitation? This is an opener, but it's not a 60, 90-minute process where it's closed. It closes at the
Yeah.
back end
Yeah.
so that
That makes
over the
sense.
course of time, we can pick up new things where
Yeah.
somebody notices, Brad's got this thing. It doesn't fit in red line, Brad. You don't get to do that. That goes over in
Yeah.
Nate's blue line. Oh, I almost got through on that one.
I
So
mean,
They do.
Brad, oh, yeah, go ahead, Nate.
no, I mean, I love this too because, um, there's an aspect in general, right, of, um, it's not just the highest value, but it's also in terms of like for the company when we look at these things like Matt Gray has this made popular a similar kind of time audit system for solopreneurs, where it's like high leverage, low leverage, and no leverage, right? And that's kind of how he defines it. And it's based a lot on value to the company. Is it like $1,000 an hour or more of value? Is it $100 an hour of value? Is like complexity and also energy, right? Is this like something that energizes me? Is it something that's kind of an energy drain? Um,
I love
and
this too because I have my coevolution version of that, which is awesome.
yeah, yeah, and um, but one of the things that thinking in these ways helps people do, right, is find their zone of genius and
Yep.
their zone of joy and to operate more and more in that zone, right? And there's also an aspect of that I think is really important. And some of this is totally, I mean, your approach, I think, is totally resonant for solo coaches, right? To do a self-evaluation or do it with their coach or whatever, to be like, what are the things in my life that are in these categories, right? Or
Yep.
these buckets, right? But there's also a point where um, when the work you're doing is more aligned with your internal purpose and like your sense of what your gifts are, right? It's more enjoyable. It's more um, you you have more motivation to do it, right? Whereas when you get into like what you were talking about, um, it's black line stuff. I think I'm getting the color correct here, but it's the responding to emails. It's the sort of like what Cal Newport talks about is like shallow work, right? It's
Yep.
it's stuff that like a lot of people could do, or some of it could be automated, maybe, or whatever. And you're just doing it because it helps you feel productive and whatever, but it's not actually, it doesn't feel meaningful. You're not like, God, I got 100 emails answered today.
Yep.
Man, I'm crushing it. And I feel so fulfilled and aligned with my purpose in life and whatever. That's like your work is helping people get to where they belong and also where their heart wants them to be, sort of underneath the surface, where
Right.
they're really doing the stuff that animates them, thinking about on their bike ride, like you were describing, like doing their pathfinding, exploring. new opportunities and new ideas, and that's what CEOs or leaders or whatever are meant to do,
They
right?
are, and everybody
And I
wants them to
love
do
that.
it, but they feel so guilty about being
Right,
watched for not the 100
right.
emails
Yeah,
because they grew up, they became who they are from one of two directions mainly,
yep,
either internally through systems. You were good at black line work, you were given some management, some tasks,
yep,
and maybe a
yep.
little bit of critical thinking, and then you were good at that and good at that. Then eventually you
Yeah,
became
yeah,
a C-suite something, and somebody said,
yep.
hey, maybe this person has got the light behind their eyes to be CEO. Not the best way to pick people, but that's how they're picked. Or the opposite is you did well enough at something, you got so frustrated with the system, you decided to start your own thing. Either
That's right.
way, you were working up the system. And that's
Yep.
one of the reasons why the red line, blue line, black line is something I describe almost to every single new client in the very first meeting in the lunch and learn or
Yep.
whatever. Nobody writes a playbook for what you're supposed to do as CEO. There's some kind of written out there, but like it's called the NFL quarterback problem. You don't really get it until you're in the NFL. I don't care how good you
Right.
were in college. Nobody cares. And in fact, we know that there's very little that talks about how well somebody is in college, how well they're going to be in the chair in the thing. But once you're
Right.
in it, then you're like, oh, what am I supposed to do again?
Yep.
Oh, these things. Oh,
Yep.
shoot, I'm not doing those things. How do I get there? And at least it gives a map. But what you've nailed is when somebody's living just within the red line activities,
Yep.
now all of a sudden their vision, mission, their why statement, which is what I hit I don't work with a client if we don't do why statements. If I don't know
Yep.
what their driving motivational force is, I don't work with them.
Yep. Yeah.
But then I get to sell, if this is your driving motivational force, it's what you care about more than you care about all the other crap.
Mm-hmm.
The red line stuff is going to help get you there. The blue line
That's right.
stuff's not. And the black line stuff's holding you back. Is this
So I,
worth behavioral change to get to your why statement? And the ones
Yep.
who say yes, they go, okay, because that's going to stink. Because guess what? Behavioral change, there ain't no hack to that.
That's hard. Yeah.
Wake up and
so
grind.
there's a question that comes up, and then I want to bring Ali onto the stage because, after all, we do like to be interactive here, and Ali will ask some amazing questions, make some amazing observations. But
Lots of pressure, Ellie.
she's up to it. I can tell you that. Um, yeah, a few minutes ago, you were mentioning the Matrix, and that brought me back to a question I had for you, which is how much of Blackline do you think gets done by AI in the next 2 or 3 years?
Um, lots, lots and lots. Um, and the way I've defined it should sound like most or all. But remember that the example I use is not a person who does one thing and then the example of a white collar criminal defense attorney. All of the
Mm-hmm.
work that she's doing right now that's about filing forms or writing briefs, yes. All the work that she's doing to strategize how to get her people out of hawk and to make it so they write a check, not go to jail, no. So like even within that person who's doing nothing but black line work, I would ordinate their work between, what's special, what's experience. And I have yet to see AI be able to look around corners, create strategy, or be able to handle something as complex as a jury trial. Just can't get it. It's not anywhere close. I haven't seen.
Well, I watched a movie last night with Scarlett Johansson, and I can tell you, Scarlett Johansson could have done those things. Allie,
Hey,
hi.
Ali.
Hi.
Uh,
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Welcome.
Allie.
Hi.
Our
Nice to
crowd
meet you,
today,
Brad.
our crowd today is smaller than sometimes, but that mostly goes down to my lack of bandwidth and promotion. But the trade-off is that it's super, super high quality. So Allie is here from the East Coast. Allie works in a corporate environment, does real, like, serious coaching, and I imagine she'll have a couple of really good questions for you.
No pressure. Um,
Mm-mm.
so I always am thinking about all of this material that we talk about. Usually we're from two perspectives. One is as a coach, and the other is as a senior leader in an organization, which is where I have a day job. And so I'm always kind of holding both. Like, I'm literally thinking about my senior team and like how we would be in your strategy session that you described, and thinking about that. And then I'm thinking about the people that I coach. So it's always very intriguing and interesting for me. I think the observation that I was making was that it felt like you were um, describing a very, very vulnerable situation with the CEO and their team, like a 360 eval, but not of their personality and behaviors, but of their actions and their, well, behaviors, I meant like emotional behaviors and
I
style,
understood.
um, but of their workload, of their how they spend their time. So I was kind of imagining it that way as I was trying to
Yeah.
conceptualize what you were saying, which would be so hard for anyone to be in that spot.
Yeah. So again, the consent, I get the consent to muck with their soul first, and then I muck with their soul in unusual ways. All right. And then they can't really argue with it because they're feeling uncomfortable. I'm like, well, you gave me consent to muck with your soul. Okay, a couple things. First off, I love that you were talking about that you're slamming together two concepts that live together and don't, your day job and your coaching job. And because I get to mention my amazing wife, her name is the amazing Sarah Beth. She's not a magician, but she kind of is. She talks about Venn diagrams that come together and had the experience and the understanding of when does it stay apart, when does it together. But does anyone know what the place oversecting in a Venn diagram is called? It's called the mandola, but I like to call it the Mandalorian just to make my wife angry. And so what you're trying to
This is the
synthesize
way.
is which part, this is the way, which parts of what I'm saying fit within one category or the other on their own, and which parts actually get into the synthesis. I
Mm,
feel like that's where you're going. You are right. This is meant to be a timekeeping, saving thing. But the reason I'm doing that is because I'm investing in getting the CEO more focused on better, higher use tasks so that I can harvest their extra capacity to do cool shit.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to buy 20 or 30% of that CEO's brain space through an activity like this. So this is like the surface level, but again, it's like in most other investments, and this is actually some part of what Joseph's asking about AI. A lot of the companies I know that are bringing in AI are not reducing staff; they're just finally opening up divisions that they couldn't open up before
Yeah.
because they were over capacity. Um, and so that's a similar thing that I'm trying to do with mucking with the CEO's time frames here, but in order to make this strong enough to be true, it can't be singular to them. Their team has to be on board as well. And watching the team suck away that other stuff, that's what I would have you take back to
Yeah.
your team is how can you get your team to engage with you in a way where they are so desperate for you to do your best highest use, they take on stuff that
Mm,
maybe they fit within the category, not their zone of genius or joy, but they're good at it and don't like it zone, which I call
yeah.
work.
Yeah. That's great.
Right?
Um, yeah, and I agree with that. And I think that the other thing that when you talked about the CEO on their bike, thinking or strategizing or envisioning, and I think
Yep.
that that is the thing that leaders need and crave the most,
Yes.
and do not give. We don't. I'll say I do not give myself permission to take
Permission.
that time, um, it, knowing yet how valuable it would be because of our culture, because of our hustle culture, our busy,
Mm-hmm.
our type A, like, and I'm all of those things, um,
No, no,
but I
no.
but I only give myself that 45 minutes in the morning, and if I get if I'm on a LinkedIn comment with Joseph, well, there's 15 minutes of my thinking time that I've now given to my phone instead because I'm engaged and I'm happy to be doing that. But every other part of my day is scheduled to, you know, 6, 7 hours of
Which
scheduled
which
time.
is why I can throw three frameworks at you right now to make things crushingly better for you. But if I don't give you something that buys the time for you to do those frameworks, they don't do anything. It's like me giving you a thing saying, "Hey, you want to run a marathon? Great, it's 10 hours a week of running. You're good." Well, wait a second, where do those 10 hours come from? Right? You didn't buy me those 10 hours.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a famous book and a famous line, but it's the only part that matters here is never underestimate the amount of time that it takes to think.
Yeah.
And you're right. In this
There's
hustle culture,
something,
we're not given that. So I buy it. I buy
yeah,
it through this framework. Other things I do too. I am going to buy their time so that I can spend their time. But they've given me permission to do that so that the best, highest use of the organization has a higher likelihood of success. With Joseph knows I use this language a lot. Sorry, Nate, I stomped on you.
yeah. No, it's totally fine. I think there's something at work here, just psychologically, um, in these situations, and I think, I mean, it's applicable for all of us, but I think it's applicable for our clients and for themselves and for their teams, is that the kind of work that we're talking about, like thinking work, right,
Mm-hmm.
or pathfinding work, or that kind of stuff. Um, there isn't, there aren't a lot of available metrics for measuring the value of um, what I'm just going to call purposeful, like actually productive, deep work like that, right? Um, it's hard to sort of value that because we don't get instant feedback about how valuable it is, right? That's stuff that it takes a long time to germinate, the value, right? Whereas something the lower value stuff that's more easily quantifiable is like, well, I cleared my inbox today. That feels like instant
Yep.
feedback, instant gratification of like I accomplished something valuable. Even though clearing your inbox is kind of just like great. I mean, did that actually move the ball forward in a meaningful way for anything, or was it just sort of like, and so I think there's like absent clear feedback about the value and importance of the stuff that Brad, like you're talking about, creating that 20 or 30% to do cool shit with, and like of the red line work itself. um People, like we all, I think, tend to default easily, our clients
Yes.
tend to default easily to the things
Yes.
that appear to be very valuable but actually aren't, right?
And they don't need permission. Allie crushed it with that. That you
Yeah,
don't need permission to go down because the metrics are there. It's easier, and
yeah,
and justifying it to somebody who doesn't understand what the CEO does, a heck of a lot easier to justify. I got back to your email than it is to
yeah,
say
right,
that our churn rate on employees is 5% higher than our benchmarked competitor. It's a
yeah,
heck of a lot easier to do one than the other. But here's the shit of it, Nate. If you're the CEO, you don't get to hide behind the easiness of the easy metric. You don't get to. It's burden of leadership, man. Sword of
right,
Damocles. You chose this. You're in it, and you're in it to win it, which means your time frame has to shift from immediate gratification to vision level gratification, which is slow and painful and hard and
right.
scary AF because halfway through it, it looks like time and expense and uncertainty,
Yeah,
right?
I
It's a
think
J
that's
curve.
right, and I think that's something that, helping our clients see that, right, and understand, like, you have, like, we all do, a natural tendency to where if we sort of aren't certain about the value of what we're doing, we're going to default to the easy thing, which is clearing the inbox, right? Because
Yep.
it seems to have metrics with it, right? And the work that's actually meaningful doesn't have those same kinds of easily quantifiable metrics. But that's
Well,
So
actually the shit that
that's one
is the
half of it.
most
The other half is
valuable.
the permission. And Ali, I want to give you some space here too. But the
Yeah.
crazy thing is when I get a CEO to understand this box, the red line work enough that they explain it on their own, and they're usually hyperverbal and
Yep.
charismatic because that's why they're
Yep.
leaders. They
Yep.
don't have to be, right? I know many who aren't. When they can explain that to their board and to their staff, the board and the staff feel relief. They don't
Yep.
feel like they have to reluctantly give permission. And that's the crazy thing, Allie. I would challenge your team if you said, hey, I want to do more of this stuff for our group. I would challenge to say, do they then go, oh my God, I can't wait to see what you do with that? Or do they go, oh, does that mean you're going to be slower at getting back to your emails?
Right.
yeah,
If they do say that second one, well, we have really identified a problem set that we
yeah.
should probably work on in the team and culture.
Yep.
Just think it. Okay,
Well,
Allie, I stomped on you. You wanted to say something.
no, I was just going to say, I think to Nate's point, I think that I know I tell myself a story all the time because you keep talking about the inbox, and that is like the bane of my existence. And the story I tell myself is it's the declutter, right? It's the I
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll get to work in an hour. And for me, honestly, a lot of times it does work until time runs out. And then I've got a
Right.
good, so I'm not going to, I need to clean out my office, or I need to clear out the counter so that I can be organized, and because when I'm organized and my inbox is clear, my head is clear, and then I can do my best thinking, and I could push meetings till the afternoon. Like I started doing that with like recurring meetings so that I could do my better thinking time in the morning. But actually it's just I'm more efficient at getting my inbox cleared out in the morning, and then all the meetings start, right? So
Joseph has the
I'm too
best quote about an
tired.
inbox.
But and then I'm just too tired to do the thinking that I really want to be doing, the deep work.
Yeah, totally.
Joseph, can you give your quote on the inbox? Do you know where I'm going?
The inbox is the perfect repository for other people's priorities.
Yeah. There is a responsibility issue, though, that you hit on, Brad, for sure.
Except with permission. So what I do with CEOs when they're really starting to jive with this and the team's together, maybe it's a year or so into the work, I start instituting something that it's more of an experiment than an actuality. So it's not, but it really works. So on Monday afternoon, before you finish work, you write a list to yourself of everything that needs to be accomplished on Tuesday. And you give yourself permission that after that is accomplished on Tuesday, your black line work, your blue line work, everything is done for the day. And if you finish at 10 a.m., congratulations. Finish at 4 p.m., congratulations. We don't balance this we're just buying our better self, giving permission to the next day's self to move into red line work. Because here's the other part about red line work. It is not an easy flip. It's thinking fast and thinking slow, two completely different things. And you let your team know on Tuesdays, I am only available for things that are above a 6 out of 10 on the urgency scale. You got something above a 6 out of 10? Let me know. I'm in. Like, no question, no problem. I am here. If it's below a 6 out of 10, let's wait until Wednesday. Why? Because you guys gave me permission to do red line work, and I'm going to do it after my half twos on Tuesday are done, and I pick the half twos on Monday when my better angels are speaking to me, instead of when you're, goddamn evil, it needs to be full, otherwise I'm not going to feel good about myself, right? That's the gremlin owning your time. And we're like, oh, the gremlin's pretty easy to defeat with systems, not big systems. You do that, right? Now, the best CEOs I know basically fail at this 50% of the time. But that other 50%, that's where the red line finally has room to breathe. The best ideas, the changes, the notice around the corner, the fact that Nate's about to step on a landmine and Joseph's pushing him towards it. Like that stuff that doesn't come from nowhere. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to buy time for. But I don't buy that time by handing the platitude of here's the red line work. Go do it. Yay. Right? You got to build it.
The only I'm a believer in what you're talking about, for sure. I love the framework. I think the perpetual challenge is culture. And so it is awesome to say all of that in theory, but if you have a heavy meeting culture in the organization, it's that has to I'm not saying it can't, just saying I'm like yeah, no, it's not gonna happen because because we book 20 of 35 hours of meetings in a week.
And you're not special enough to be treated differently right now, Allie, is it because you're not CEO, right? You're not special enough to be like, okay, we've got a meeting culture. That's just the way it is. But Allie doesn't have to be part of meeting culture 4 hours a week. Like, no offense, but just like where you are in the system, that's why you're feeling constrained in this, because you would have to change the system above you and broader than you. Right. And it's like, well, we can't do this on this call today. And I don't want to say you're trapped and I can't like help out in anything. That's why this one's got some tension.
This is just about observations that I see in different organizations, and that that the theory, and I'm not trying to challenge your framework. I'm saying it's, as you well know, because you even just said 50% of the time, like the best CEOs, like it takes, my son just started an internship and he said that every month, I know, isn't that cool?
Congratulations. And please tell him I said congratulations.
That's awesome. I saw
that. Every Monday until noon, it's a global organization, has no meetings until noon. And I'm like, damn, if I could just start my Monday like that, and everyone from the CEO to like everywhere in the organization, direct reports aren't looking for your time, team meetings aren't happening, like CEOs are doing their deep work or whatever it is that they need to do to get themselves set for the week. I'm just like, that is fantastic. I just don't know how many organizations do that or buy into that or keep to it when they
Well,
make that promise to each other.
this actually fits with
Hey,
what Nate
Ali,
was saying. Go ahead.
I'm curious. I'm curious before you answer here. That sounds like a part that is baked into their culture and is very explicit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in the part of the employee handbook or whatever that says that, does it say no meetings on Monday morning because you're worth it?
Huh. Yeah. I'll have to check that.
Zach is interning at L'Oreal. I see the two guys there know nothing about cosmetics. That joke
No,
felt
I
like it
do.
skirted the
I
pool.
was like, oh man, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I've heard of the brand. It has to do with trust as well, which is what Nate was actually talking about with, I think, Nate, you were actually talking about with the metrics. I can trust a low value, high symbolic, high visual metric. I can trust that.
Right.
I
Right.
don't need to make a big leap of faith to trust that. But I trust that if Joseph tells me to do something, I'm going to do it. That's a different form of trust, right? And I don't need to know his stuff behind it. And we can talk about how trust relationships are built. But Ali, that's the problem is your team, if you presented this up, hey, let's do the Monday morning no meetings thing, they would say, well, then people are just going to come in hungover at noon because they've got a low trust organization. They don't trust that people
I
will actually show up, do their best at work, and that they will buy so much time. Okay, I might be
I don't
jumping the
actually
shark
think
there.
that's it. I actually
so
think it's infringement on the time that is the problem. I don't think it's trust. I think it's creep. It's like meeting creep. And oh well, great. Mondays
Ooh.
are free, so why don't we just throw that in there? And then that becomes a norm again instead of really preserving that time for everyone. That's my experience.
there's
Norms.
I'm
um
curious about
there's
whether, the awareness of red line, blue line, and black line, whether that awareness itself might begin to change a culture that has, so much, so much meeting in there. If I'm a CEO and I know that model, and I know that, you know, 30 out of 40-hour weeks or 30 hours out of 40-hour weeks, as if we work those, are already scheduled, I'm going to go, wow, how much of that is really necessary? And I'm probably going to start, whittling that down a little bit.
Yeah,
I
I
yeah,
agree.
I love that, Joseph, because as I'm just as I'm listening, being like, well, this is our culture, and this is just what everybody does. I'm curious, and I'm not saying you should do this, Ali, but I'm curious what would happen if you did do it. If you went to your boss and you were like, hey, um, I've been I've been doing some tracking, I've been doing some work on my own, and by my calculations, I'm spending 25 hours a week. So roughly 45% of my time responding to emails and attending meetings that I don't have necessarily a lot of input, or that I'm not sure how necessary I am. Are you comfortable with me spending 45 hours of my time answering the phone, doing meetings, and responding to emails, and like almost ask for a budget for blackline work, and be like, how much of my time do you feel like I should be spending doing kind of just moving information back and forth within our group and within our team? Because I think a good boss, a good manager would be like, that's a total waste of your 40 of like 25 of your hours. Like, you shouldn't be spending more than 10 or 15 or 20, whatever it is, right? Um, you shouldn't be spending that much time on that. And to just be like, yeah, I'm wondering what's an acceptable number for you, um, as a percentage of my work week for me to be doing kind of bullshit work. Um, because what I'd really like to be doing is work that like moves the ball forward, that expands what we're doing, that like furthers our mission, whatever it is. I'm curious if people sort of were able to like manage up in that way to just be like, hey, here's what my week looks like. What do you think?
Mhm.
I think most people would be like, yeah, more than 50% of your week is just responding to emails. That seems like a real waste of time. And also, we're not, paying you whatever your salary is just for you to be responding to emails all the time. And maybe your boss would be like, yeah, that seems right.
Let's
Go
not
for
make
it.
this about, it's not really even about me personally.
I
I know,
know.
I
I was
know.
trying
I'm
to
just,
save you from being coached, Allie, because you
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
give us
yeah. We're not,
consent.
we're not doing
We
that.
all coach. We
But
go into coach mode. No, I get it.
That's
No, I
fine.
hear you. And I
I was
think
thinking
that,
about this.
yeah, no, I think that I'm really just thinking about different corporate cultures and how I think my brain goes to, that's an amazing framework, Brad. That's awesome. Let me
Yeah,
pick it apart because that's the way I'm going to understand it and like
Sure.
get through the challenges of it so that it can do the thing that it's brilliantly meant to do. So yeah, no, I appreciate all that, but I'm just like sort of thinking out loud about how this can
yeah,
play
yeah,
out,
yeah.
and people have different, everyone has different level of control over their own work, and
Totally.
so I think that point is a critical component of,
Well,
Nate, the points that you were driving, which is like, how much can I, like I don't have to ask permission. I just need to get my
Right.
work done, right? But
Yeah,
but it's more about, I'm just really looking like organizationally at like how
yeah,
this plays out and how some corporate cultures that framework would just slide right in like beautifully, and in others it would just be like, oh my god, in a year and a half we'd
yeah,
still be like, well, we tried that. So, but I do think
yeah.
that you're right about how you go about it, Brad. Is it has to start at the top, it
it
has to
has to.
start with that
It's why it's designed
C-suite level.
for them,
Yeah,
right? I
Yeah.
want you to think
that's
about how
right.
does this work for me, but I also want you to think about why am I different than the CEO? And I want you to love your CEO enough to give them permission to do the smart, good things, including not just verbal permission, but take stuff off them, encourage them, all that stuff. But the thing I think, Allie, that I learned today for talking to you about this, both on your coaching side and your working side, is just the concept of the simple framework's purpose and tool isn't just alignment, isn't clarity. I'm trying to buy time to go do better things. Nate, that's what your audit was about as well. Your audit is, hey, let's look at the ways I'm wasting time. Mine is about reorganizing time. And there's a bunch of ways to do it. But the general concept still is, I want more budget. I, Brad, want more budget as a coach. And my budget is not defined by money. My budget is defined by time and attention. I want more
Yeah.
of it. I'm going to earn it. And
Speaking of
that's
time,
something I didn't know before today.
we're pretty close to time, and it seems like Rolla
Hi.
is available for a moment.
Hey,
So I'm going to
Rolla.
give the last word to
No,
Rolla, and then we'll wrap up.
can you hear me well?
Yes,
Yes.
very
Yeah,
well.
hi
Okay, I
Rolla.
tried to put the video, but it's not working for me. I
Oh, well,
just
it's still
wanted
good to hear your voice.
thank you. I just wanted to say hi and pleasure to meet you, Brad. That I was listening. I just have my 3 kids and their play date. So,
Oh, man.
I just wanted to say hi and the great conversation. And for me, I'm a freelancer, solopreneur, so I don't have anybody checking on me and giving me objectives. So that resonated a lot in terms of every day kind of setting my priorities and starting with that, what actually moves the needles versus getting busy with those tasks that you need to move on, but doesn't really make much difference else than maybe making me feel better about my inbox or my list to do. So just wanted to say hi and thank you for sharing your framework with us, Brad.
You're
So glad
welcome.
you were here,
It was
Rolla.
my pleasure. Yeah.
I'll come sit next to you for a moment, Brad, and just tell you thank you for taking the time today. I thought this was pretty cool. You know, like the way you unpacked it, and then we kind of poked and prodded at this. I think it's a really helpful thing, and this is one of the reasons why a coach show exists. A lot of us are just out there kind of on our own, figuring out things on our own. My belief is that we work better when we work together, and we can kind
Yeah.
of talk to each other and test out ideas. So again, thank you for being here. And I just really appreciate everything you contributed.
Ditto.
I appreciate it, Joe. I was going to say Jolo because we all call him Jolo. But if this is the only way I can get FaceTime with you these days, I'll be here as much as I can.
You actually said that on camera? Great.
Yeah, I did. I did. That's how much Joseph means to me, is that my wife and kids are downstairs having dinner, and just to spend time with Joseph, I'll be here. No shade, no shade. It's actually really lovely, Joseph, because I don't know that many coaches, and the ones that I've met in different attributes and ways, they fit into a model of coaching that I don't resonate with at all, and sometimes don't respect at all. And the level of conversation we had here, which was poking and prodding to find the truths, not with arrogance or ego, but like all in with humility, and where are the spots that this works instead of where are the spots where I can prove why it's wrong. I think that was really special. Hi, Hux. But on that note, yeah, thank you for inviting me and encouraging me. And when I got way too over my skis and trying to design what I was talking about, Joseph talked me off the ledge. So what you saw today was definitely a result of him telling me to stop overthinking it.
We all need each other. Well, Nate, it's another episode of Coach Show in the books. We'll be back here next Tuesday, same time, same channel. Brad, I will send a video to you, an MP4 that is an export of this. It'll probably be tomorrow morning, but feel free to take any of the clips of you talking and use them as promote your work. Rolla, Ali, thank you so much for being here and being a part of the conversation, and have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Take care, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
you guys.
Bye,
Take it easy. Thanks, Brad.